Hi, I'm Juanita Johnson. I'm a volunteer with Home Hospice. I've been doing it for about several years. And I work with patients, doing the patient care, and I do legacy programs, which is going in and documenting the patient's life story for the family, kind of helping them. It does a variety of things. It helps them work through their end of life process and remembering their life, reliving it, kind of setting things straight. So it has a lot of different purposes. It's been very rewarding to do that, to be allowed to be part of their life. Everybody has a story to tell, and I think every person wants to be heard at some level. Some people, it's a little harder to get them to open up and to talk about that and to let themselves be vulnerable, and others not so much. Others are pretty free with talking, and they're used to being heard, and they want to continue to be heard. They're not ready to give up their time here. So it's been a very rewarding thing to do and to be involved in. And it's meaningful. It's to learn so much about people and share parts that they haven't maybe even remembered or shared with some of their family members. Sometimes they come up with memories and stories that they've just harbored inside for so long, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're kind of dark, but they all contribute to who we are. So, and the patient care is oftentimes just going in and helping the families, giving them relief for the spouse or the family members to go for an appointment. Maybe it's just to take care of themselves, to get their hair done, to have a little breather. And to be able to do that is very rewarding. And the one thing I've learned in that process is it's very gratifying for me to be able to help do that. And it has also helped me learn as an individual how important it is to ask for help. That oftentimes families wait too late to ask for help, and they're kind of desperate, And I think oftentimes we, even as healthy individuals, can get to that point. And it's been a good life lesson in learning to ask for help when it's needed, because there are people like myself and the other volunteers that are really excited of helping, and they want to help and contribute. And by not asking, they would be denying that volunteer the opportunity to use their gifts and their abilities to do it. We're always looking for volunteers for patient care, for legacy. It may be a one-time visit with a patient, and it may be a long time. The legacies can be really short and quick, and sometimes they can be a longer involvement with the patient and the family. So there's no set in stone way that anything is done. So anything that anyone is willing to contribute is very needed and very appreciated, and it's just a very valuable way to contribute. I started with hospice. I came to check out their legacy program because I have a long history of doing daily journaling for myself, just for, self-growth, whatever. I write daily. And a friend of mine was very familiar with that, and so she had seen an article in the newspaper that the hospice was offering this legacy program, and she knew that my interest in all people, that it would be a really good fit for me. And knowing that she knew me as well as she did, I trusted her opinion and kind of stuck my toe in the water and came and went through the legacy training, and I just found it really fascinating. And then it was just kind of all in with however I can help, because it's a worthy cause, and it's a fun thing. It's a hard thing. I can't say that it's all fun all the time, but it is just very worthy. And the smiles that you get to see on people's faces just keep you coming back, and knowing that you've been a help and a relief, and just a hug that they hadn't had that day. And it makes it all worth it. A volunteer, an assignment will come when the coordinator, our volunteer coordinator, will call and present us with a question of the needs of a patient, availability, checking to see what our availability is, if it's something that we have the time to commit to contribute to and everything. And anytime that we have that our schedules line up and everything, because sometimes there's flexibility. It depends on if there's an appointment that is set in stone that they need relief for that, or if they just need to go grocery shopping. So sometimes there's some flexibility with the schedule that then is a little easier to work with my schedule, and sometimes I have to say no. But I always try and say yes. But I have to say that our volunteer coordinator, Barb, has just been a gem to work with, that when I have to say no, there is absolutely no guilt or shame or baggage. She so wants everyone that's volunteering to be happy and present as they're doing it, and that can only happen when you're really doing it from a good place and you're saying yes because you can do it and you want to do it. Once I became a volunteer, it has been a really interesting process of how it comes to get an assignment. We have a coordinator that makes all of the contacts and contacting the volunteers, and she picks those as, I'm sure she has a list that she's going down. And she goes from there in contacting people with the needs that they have. I've had some really interesting interviews with doing the legacy, and I've got several that have really come to mind that have been very impactful in many ways. A lot of our patients have lived through time periods and social upheavals, I guess. I had one legacy patient that had gone through a lot of the race riots and stuff in Alabama back in the 60s, and really hearing her perspective and her story, and just really getting to know her heart and where she's at now, and really where she was at that whole time, has just been a really amazing way to learn things. She was a teacher at heart, and a lot of my naivety and things that I didn't know about history, she was just the most patient and kind person to teach me not only her story, but just the story at large. And that was just a very eye-opening experience, a very heart-rendering experience, to really kind of walk through someone's life in their shoes with them kind of at the end. It was a very emotional thing. And I was thankful, very thankful to get to have spent that time with her. And there have been others that their life, they've maybe kept so closed up, so withdrawn from things, that when they come to the point where they're ready to share their legacy, that it's almost like this internal explosion of their feelings that come out, and it's like this confessional. And so sometimes those things aren't put in the legacy, in the end they want those things edited back out, but they seem to have gotten so much in the process of working through it. Sometimes the end of life is a time when they really have a lot of issues to work through and things that they need to come to terms with, and sometimes the legacy serves that purpose, and maybe that's all it needs to be. Sometimes it's something else, and sometimes it's just a process that they need to go through. And sometimes you learn some really cool things as a volunteer. Online grocery shopping. Don't think that I would have gotten there on my own, but in the past I've gone and done grocery shopping for families, where I would go and pick up the grocery list, go to the store, do the shopping, bring the groceries back home, unload them, and put them away for them. But recently we had a client that was interested in doing the online grocery shopping, and she did her entire purchase online at the store, and I simply had to drive to the store with the information that she had given me, and the groceries were loaded in the car, and I left, took them to her house and helped unload and all, and it was a very fast experience, and it was wonderful to get to learn and experience something like that I might not have taken the time to do on my own. I have a tendency to be really observant with people, and as I was sitting with a patient one time that was suffering from Alzheimer's, I really started paying attention to a lot of her mannerisms and how she was using her hands, and just her actions of how her body was working. Now, if that's the same for all patients, I don't know. But I went home and started doing a lot of research on different things that could be done to keep the hands busy. And I ended up sewing, because I also like to sew, these little patches of fleece fabric that had a maze sewn in it and a marble. And it was great to be able to take that back to her and give it to her and watch her be able to move her hands the way that she'd been moving them around and everything as much, and be able to work that marble through the maze and give her something to fidget with that was not being destructive as she had been with all the other pieces that had been laying around the house, you know, for her to be able to have something that was hers to be able to pick up and move. And that was really rewarding, to have been able to see a problem and kind of address it and give her something to work with. So after I had made one of these for the patient and had given it to her, the nurses saw it, and I had shared it also with the volunteer coordinator, and then we ended up, I made a whole bag of them, and they started distributing them out to other patients that were in need, that had that kind of, needed to work on their fine motor skills and keep some flexibility in their hands and movement and everything. I think volunteering with hospice has expanded my heart more than anything. It has made me really value every person, no matter who they are, where you see them. Every person has a story. Every person has a heart. Every person has a family. And they may not always be pleasant stories. And some of them are the best stories. And you don't know until you talk to them. But really, volunteering with hospice has been a life-giving thing for me. You know, it has been a real reward to be able to share in other people's lives. And they have an interest in knowing about you and who you are and why you're there to talk and spend time with them. And it's a really, maybe an odd way to have a relationship or to start one out, you know, but some of the best ones come that way.